Hi, everyone. This is Tina Schmidt. Welcome back to my channel, Kingdomwalker 24/7. And today I have a most exciting interview with Joe Sapira. Joe has had encounters with Jesus, angels, and the kingdom of heaven. And so I hope you join us and stay and listen to his most amazing and beautiful testimony. So, so go ahead, Joe. Just give me your story. When you reached out to me in your email, you had so much to share, and you were just bubbling over with the spirit of joy and enthusiasm. I want to know a little bit more about your story.
Sure. Yes. Yes. Any question you would want to know? Yeah, it's a lot. Well, I was actually adopted when I was real little. I um I was with my natural parents, but I was put into foster care from what a babysitter saw happen.
Okay.
So I don't know the details of that. The Canadian Child Protective Services, they keep things very secretive. They have to protect the child, and but from what they told my parents that were going to take me in and adopt me, and from what the social workers told them is that I was being abused in my environment. So
Mhm.
they and immediately the authorities came to the house and took me out.
Sure. What challenges, or how did you come to know the Lord, and what are those challenges you think that led you from where you were to knowing the Lord? I think those journeys, what life gives us, is very amazing for everyone. That's very different for everybody. So I'm very interested in hearing your journey.
Yes, I my both my mother and my father, they were both active in the church. My mom was more into the sanctuary type of work and working with the ministers, and my dad was more with the reading scripture and teaching that way. So
Mhm.
I was adopted into a family right away that had the Lord in it. So when I became 10, my mom took me into sanctuary work as well, and then I also did a little bit about what my dad did, which was a lot of reading, a lot of scripture,
I see.
and understanding it. And so those were those years. So that was it. I remember being there for 4 years, 4 years
Oh.
in the church sanctuary. So
Now, was that with your bio parents or your adopted parents?
my adopted, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good
okay.
question. Yes. Every time I tell about my story, it's I have two sets of parents, so it's kind of confusing.
Yes. You had a foundation in because of these loving foster parents, you had a foundation in some Christianity,
Mhm.
some form of faith.
Yes.
Hmm. And what happened to in as you started to grow and to move on in your life and discover the complexities of life? What twists and turns happened that kind of led you into some of those very challenging situations?
I really didn't see them until about high school.
Okay.
It seems as if like a switch went off to where after I was 14, then it was hard to be happy just in general, just from
Mm,
day to day life. I remember that very, very clearly. And once I once I got to, when I was 16, sophomore in high school, I started to feel just angry, and not very, it was hard for me to be content with little things, anything. Before, little things like having dinner with my parents, made me very happy. And we would laugh and talk and even, watch Wheel of Fortune together. But none
right,
of
right.
those things that
Okay.
I did up until I was 15 and 16 made me happy anymore. So I was looking for something, and I definitely remember when I was going into my junior year, I've I just looked at the world and I saw all these different beliefs and religions, and it kind of bothered me. It bothered me in the sense that are they all right? That's not possible. How can that be possible? If
Mm.
they really believe with all their heart, then they can't all be right. I always felt there has to be one way, that there has to be.
You were searching for truth back then, searching for these answers.
Yes, truth was one of them. The second one was I personally wanted to know if God was real. I didn't I did not feel that he was because of all the religions I saw in the world. I
Hmm.
thought he was just another religion.
And you just brought up something very interesting. Did you see a difference, or did you have any discernment about the difference between God and religion? Or did you see them as one and the same?
I at that time in high school I saw them as the same because there were I mean, I had friends that were from different Christian churches. So and they all thought, that God was real that way. And I understand. Like, to them, that's real to them. And
Mhm.
God
Right.
in that way is real to them.
Yes.
Um,
Interesting.
yes.
So 16, you were going through this angry phase. It sounds to me like maybe there was some frustration about what the world was showing you and what you were searching for on some other level with religion and God, and also growing up. And do you have anything that you can pinpoint your anger on, or was it just in general?
It was a lot of things, I think it's also a part of what most teenagers go through. I was also trying to find my place where I fit in, and I didn't really feel I fit in with my other friends and even my family. Um,
Mhm.
the other part of I think the frustration was also my mom was very old fashioned. So she was very, she did love me. I knew she loved me. She showed it and everything, but she wanted me to be, in the medical field in a very, and my dad's side of the family wanted me to be in bookkeeping and possibly a lawyer. But my gifts were not in those areas. And
Oh.
even as a teenager, I knew my gifts were not in those areas. My gifts were in music and art and
Mhm.
acting. It was all in those areas, and counseling. Those were my gifts.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You mentioned music, art, and acting and counseling. All of those gifts are working with an entirely different part of the psychology and a different part of the brain than what your parents had wanted, because they were they wanted you to be into a certain category of gifts which God had not actually gifted you to begin with. So you were trying to grow and be who you needed to be, and your parents had tried to fit you to be something that you were not gifted in. Is that
Yes.
what you? Oh, okay. All right. That's interesting. Yeah, and I think this is like Paul says, there isn't anything new under the sun that we get challenged with. It's a story we do hear many times. So what happened then? I know there's a span of time and experiences here, but let's move forward a little bit to what I know that you had been on the streets for a while. You must have been searching for something that you couldn't find in the normal aspect of society. So you seem to be on this kind of soul journey in a way to try to figure out your place and everything. Tell us your side of that. What's going on there?
Yeah, the economic recession. I moved to a small town 3 hours south of San Francisco. So I did grow up in California, but later Currently I'm on the East Coast. So when the recession hit this little town, um, it really made everything really bad because I remember there only being a tomato factory, that supplied a lot of jobs, and also Lowe's,
Mhm.
Walmart,
Yeah,
big
yeah.
stores of this type. But
Mhm.
that was all there was. Nothing bigger than that. No other big organization or a corporation that will keep the town, alive. And so it struggled really, really, really bad. I mean, I remember, before the recession, even in this small town, you would maybe see someone homeless, maybe 1 out of 20, 1 out of 50 people. It was pretty
Mhm.
rare. And then when the recession happened, it was 1 out of 10 or 15. It was really,
Oh,
really bad. I worked at this Vietnamese restaurant right before the recession happened, because it hit our town in the winter of 2008. And after that, my job was gone, my apartment, everything, and just everything started closing. I remember that people started dumpster diving, as did I, and then I learned how to survive by finding recycling and collecting them, and having them weighed out. They give you a voucher, for cash after they weigh out your recycling. I learned that way, and I looked for odd jobs through friends of friends, and even people I met when I went to church. I would offer to do their yard, on a sliding scale, of course, and I know that
yeah.
everyone is struggling, so, but every penny, Tina, that I made, I threw it into my bank account. I was going to save up enough money to get out of there. I was going to crawl myself out of this, out of poverty. I would do
Mhm.
everything possible.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of it. That was the beginning. And so once I started to learn how to survive, I learned how to, sometimes I slept in my car, sometimes I slept, I would find a place that was safe. So I looked for places on the better parts of town, the middle upper class neighborhoods, but I had to find places where I was covered by bushes and trees very well, so I don't alarm the neighbors. Thought about this very clearly, and then what started to happen to me mentally and everything emotionally, it started to become very heavy. You know, I started to feel, how hard it was, to survive, but I just kept going, and I started to talk to God during this time. Um, and the scriptures that I remember from when I was a little boy, I started to bring back to my mind, you know, and I would just talk to him. I would just talk to Abba just like he was in front of me. That's when I really started to talk to him.
I think this is so amazing that even in this very difficult challenge, without all of the things we're comforted by, food and shelter and a job, and you continued to talk to God, and you continued to remember the scriptures. And one thing that caught me with my attention in your testimony here is that you said you just kept going on. In other words, to me, it appeared you never lost hope. You never lost a vision. You just hung on to that faithfully, that something would change. I think that's pretty amazing to get through that kind of hardship.
Yes.
So you talked to God a lot, and you read or you remembered your scriptures. And did you have a transformation, or did you what happened? How did you make that change? How long were you on the streets?
I was there from 2009 to the fall of 2014.
What was the catalyst? What was the changing thing that happened for you, uh, getting you in that process of transformation? What happened to you?
Yeah, so and in one of my spots where I felt really, really safe, it was down the street from the church I went to. And there was a chapel part of the church. There's the big part and the chapel part. The chapel part is 24 hours. It was wonderful. Anyone can go in there. But it was strictly the only rule that they had was be as quiet as possible. Most of the time there was only maybe one person there or two. One time I went there at 12:30 in the morning. One time I went there at 2 in the morning to talk to Abba, and it was so peaceful being in that church at that time. And you know, and it gave me more, you could say, strength, from walking all day and looking for recycling and doing odd jobs. Because when this first began, when I was on the street, it was very, very, the weather was really hot. So, because it was in this valley. This small town was in this valley to where every summer the heat would trap itself. And so I got really dark from walking around here. I got a almond colored shaped skin and walnut color after a while. Went through shoes. I went through, sneakers like nothing, because I walked so much each day.
Mhm.
And having a bag. But going back to what happened was when June of 2009 rolled around, I was in my spot, and I fell asleep. What started to just change everything, and that's when my first supernatural experience occurred. And
Did you say
yes,
June of 2000? June of 2000?
June of 2009.
Oh, 2009. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And so you're still on the streets at this time, and you just got onto the streets basically, right? From 2009 to 14, you were on the streets.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, and
I've
so,
been on the streets for about a couple months when
okay,
when Jesus visited me.
okay, so you're on the streets a couple months. Jesus visits you. I find that fascinating. It's kind of like going through your 40 days in the desert. You went through your years in the desert, basically. But I think on some level that there's this fasting process going on in your soul. It's almost like gleaning off all of what this Babylonian society was putting on you, and you hit bottom, or you went to bottom to find Jesus. I find that amazing. So tell me about your 2009 experience.
Yes. So I got into a routine already, and I'm pretty good at surviving. I think, for only being there a short time in this chapter of my life. And I just remember I fell asleep just talking to God. I remember I was squeezing my hands really tight, and almost to where my nails were digging into my hands, because I was really crying out to God, and and I as I was crying out, I just fell asleep. I don't really remember falling asleep, probably because I was really tired. And my phone, I used it as an alarm clock, so I can still use it. I don't have the money to pay for it, but I use it as an alarm clock. So I would wake up at a quarter to 5, 4:30 or 5 in the morning, so I can start trekking before it got really, really hot, during the day. It gave me a head start, and I woke up way before my alarm, which never happens, and I woke up to the feeling of a person being there, like right next to me. I fell asleep on my back behind my spot, behind these bushes. And I just feel strongly that someone is on my right side. So right away I'm thinking it's a cop, it's the police. So, it's routine. I had a feeling it would happen sooner or later, you know. So I started opening my eyes, and I'm thinking, oh, great, here we go. Now I have to pack up all my things. Now he knows where I sleep. Now I have to find a new spot. You know, all these thoughts are going through my head. So I'm thinking, okay, meet the officer. Let's see what happens. So I open my eyes and I don't see anyone. But the feeling of someone being there is still there. And then that feeling of someone being there, I start feeling it above me, all around me, inside of me, and even below me where I'm sitting. So this energy of this presence, it starts to what's a good word? Saturate everything. I mean, all the way down to I felt it just so complete, even in every bone, every muscle, every to the tiniest parts of me. It was very intense. I've never experienced anything close to that. So my mind's trying to wrap around what's going on, you know, and I'm still not seeing anything. And then that feeling becomes stronger as the minutes go on. It becomes stronger. And then I feel something start coming into my vision. I start visually starting to see something. And I look up. I know right away to look up. So not, I mean, you know, I'm not looking straight up, but you know, as if I'm looking at an angle, you know. So I'm sitting up on the ground and I'm looking like this. You know, and I'm looking just like this. How you can see me in the camera, just like this. And I see a person start to come into focus, and I see an outline. I first see an outline of the head, shoulders, all the way down to the feet, and then I start seeing details of it. I start seeing hair, very wavy, almost curly hair, and then I see a beard, and I see even the creases in this long robe. I see the creases in it, and I see bare feet, and you know, and I'm just becoming more and more, you know, just in shock, but in a good way, in a very, very, very good way, you know. So, and I know what I'm seeing. I know I'm not crazy, you know, but my brain is, it's like it's fighting it. It's trying to figure out, am I hallucinating? I know I'm not. Like, I know that this is not a hallucination, you know? And so I would even test what I'm seeing. So my brain is trying to test what I'm seeing. So I think, okay, all right, if I'm hallucinating, if I move my head, what I'm seeing will move with me. It does not move with that person does not move does not move with me. He's where he is without any control of my thoughts. On his own movements, his own volition, without me, without any of my mind's control. So, and then I remember his hand was in front of him, and then right away I know who it is, with no doubt in my mind. And so I just couldn't believe it, that it's Jesus Lord. It's, you know. And one thing I noticed here that was very, very interesting that I'll never forget. Listen to this. There's no cars passing by, no people. Impossible. I mean, I'm almost on a main street at 4:30 in the morning. Jesus wakes me up to experience his presence and to see him. I remember every other morning and night before that, there's always someone. There's always a car. Eventually there would be a car. You know, there would be someone. There was no one during this entire encounter. There was nobody. It's as if he stopped that time so that I can experience what he wanted to show and teach me, you know?
That's
I'll
amazing.
never forget that. Yeah.
Tell me more about this vision of Jesus when he parted the sky practically and gave you this amazing vision right in front of you. That is fascinating.
Yes, and you know, it is so crisp and clear as if, I mean, whenever I tell people about this, I can see it. I can see everything like it was just, it's like it's happening all over again. Not just like when you have a good memory of,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's
I
different
do.
when he appeared, when
I
he,
do.
yeah. So I can tell you understand. Yeah,
I do. I do.
like
And
it's, yeah.
this is so supernatural, and it has a lot to do with the eternal now, in God's, kingdom and in God's time. When you reflect back on that supernatural experience, it isn't just a memory pulled up. You are bringing into exactly what happened in that time is being drawn into you now again. That's refreshing, isn't it?
Yes. I don't have to struggle to think about, the details of it and the
Mhm.
specifics. Never a
Yes.
struggle when I bring it up from my memory. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the eternal now, and it's always fresh. That's what I love about the Spirit of God.
Same.
Yeah. So, this experience, how did it affect you? What went on after that? What happened?
Well, immediately, after he started to go away, but before that, he asked me a question. He asked me if I wanted some of his fire. And
Oh,
and it
he did.
was,
Oh,
yes, he did. And it wasn't like how out loud, how humans, how we talk. It was, I call it our hearts talk. It's to me, it's louder. It's a whole lot louder when you're talking with Jesus. It's just, I remember that specifically. It was just our hearts talking. It's more than telepathic. Does that make
yes.
sense? Yes.
It sure does. It's all encompassing, and it's clearer, more clearer than you and I could ever talk to each other. It is so clear.
Yes. That's how I describe it. And that's how we were, having our convo. And then and that's what he asked me. And I said yes. And then when that happened, I started to feel a different energy come down from him to where I was. And it felt like an ocean. And I had this memory of when I was with my cousin in Long Beach, California, and we were watching a surfing competition. When the surfers would go through the tunnel, when the waves would
Pipeline?
start, yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like
Oh,
I was being pushed through, but his fire was like it was going into me, but it was also staying around me at the same time. Again, how do you explain that? So it felt like it was in I was allowed to be even more sensitive to even my physical body. So I felt his fire go into every cell in my physical body, all the way down to the microscopic,
yes.
and I remember that clearly. It was
Yeah,
it's like every tiniest part of me was alive
that's
to
right.
the
Yeah.
highest degree possible.
Mhm. I really appreciate this detailed experience that you have to articulate it to us and to share it with us. Thank you. What happened after this supernatural immersion in the Spirit of the Lord? What effect did this have? What were your thoughts after this?
I right away, all I could think was, God is real. He is real. That was the only thing the first few days going through my head. It was like when you watch when you watch the what's that TV show with not TV show, excuse me, hold on. I remember the Dow Jones when the same message would come, and tell
Oh,
you like how your stocks are. But
yeah,
in my repetitive thing, it kept on saying God is real. God is real. That's what it
that's
felt like.
interesting.
Yeah, and it was just, yeah, I was on a cloud for the first few days after it. I was literally on a cloud, but also, yeah, I just didn't know how to I was still learning how to absorb all what just happened and digest it.
You had to
Um,
process. You had to have time to process this experience.
yes, exactly. It took me months, but the initial, after he disappeared and he left, after he gave me some of his fire and he left, for my physical body, it even took about, I remember, almost a month just to recover from his presence and being in the fire, in his fire, just the amount that he gave me. It was so much to where it was still coming out, and
Mhm.
and and my body was still coming down to earth, and I was also immediately, like, I was able to pray longer. I was able to he also opened up my spirit to where I can see things that are normally invisible, which I never saw before. In other words, what I mean by that is he showed me what I thought wasn't real at the time. Like, what I mean at the time, he showed me what's normally invisible to all of us, demons, angels. He was showing me both. And he showed me that there are two sides to that existence. And
Yes. Hmm.
and before that, of course, I did not think that that was really, really real. I've seen so many movies about good and evil, good battling evil, but the the thing was, now I knew for a fact
Right.
it's not a movie, it's not something made up. So
Mhm.
what do I do with that? So yeah, so just as you were saying, like those months of me trying to process everything. And he was teaching me scriptures I didn't know in addition, and teaching me about what he was showing me in the spirit visual, and what he was showing me, that was, so he was teaching me all these different things in the spirit in these few months when I was trying to digest it.
Mhm. That's amazing. That is such an act of mercy and kindness and compassion over your life. He'd been watching over you, and when you hit low, I think, thinking about what you said, if this was in 2009 and you were in the streets till 14, he gave you something essential you needed to get through that rough uh, drought in your life. He gave you something amazing, a gift to help carry you through. I think that is just such a blessing. What else happened? So tell me, you said you had, in your letter to me, you had a number of these supernatural encounters. Is there something else along after this experience you'd like to bring to light?
Sure, yes. He allowed me to see parts of heaven, twice. The first time was 2015, and the second time was 2019. Um, and but yes, yes. Also, to answer your other question, Tina, to further elaborate, so you can get a better picture. After he visited me, after he appeared to me, it moved me to reach out to people. So the church that I go to down the street, that I said earlier, I eventually became a founder of a prayer support organization, and with three other leaders at this time. And then from 2013 to 2014, I became a lead singer of a ministry called Glory. With being first I was a background singer of the worship band. Then I became the lead singer after our lead singer moved to Mexico, and so I had to find a backup singer for me. And yeah, that ministry was very it comforted a lot of people. And yes, I took it very seriously, like because it's God's people. You want to treat them how Jesus treated them when people came to Jesus when he was on earth. I was seeing it that way. People that came to Jesus when he was on earth, Abba is letting them come to me to bring Jesus. So There were times when I was imitating Jesus and pushing myself to learn and to stay in God's hand. In other words, things like fasting, no food, things like really listening to the person that needs help. You know, the and and what was very effective about the ministry was, we, not just because it was still in the recession period, it was in the beginning of how the ministry is formatted every week, we would have someone share their story and their testimony for 10 or 20 minutes, just give a summary. And then afterwards, we started the worship music. Our band started. So every week, I would ask Heaven what songs, and then I would have us rehearse. I would make my band rehearse, and then we would do it live. The Lord taught me the importance of that, because someone in the audience is going to hear a song and they're going to have their encounter. But if that song was not played, it might be delayed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how I tell people, and that was very important to do. What, one time I was with my lead, guitarist, and and we were, we were just talking to God, talking to Bob, and finding out if we should play this song on Wednesday night or this song at Glory. What should we do? And if he wasn't getting anything, then I would ask Jesus personally which song. I would show him the list and of what I had in mind, and if he had something else, he would bring it to me.
You have this open relationship with Jesus just to consult with him. I do the same thing. I talk to him every day. Once you have that encounter with the Lord and you know he's so real, it changes your spirit to where you are, like Paul said, you walk in the kingdom, you are seated in the high places with Christ, even though you walk the earth, even though you're here. And I find that the same thing, that I'm always talking very openly and consulting with the Lord. I think that's a very important thing that we need in our relationship with the Lord, to be open and to know he's right there.
Yes. Yeah, I love it when people like yourself tell me that you do that too, because a lot of the prayer requests that some people I've spoken with, they're just beginning to understand that importance of asking, Lord, what do you think? Should I bring this out or not? Yeah.
What goes on in your spirit when you get that confirmation? Is it something audible? Is it something you feel? Is it just an overall sense of yes, wellness, or how does he communicate his affirmation, his answers to you?
How he answers me is in a variety of ways, mostly all the way up until now. Mostly he gives me either a visual picture in my head, or when I'm praying to him, like at 3 a.m, that's when I talk to him. I've actually in between 2 and 3, but normally I hear him speak to me the most at that time. And it is mostly, the inside. I have heard outside audible. I have heard that, but only once. That was, I only remember once in my entire life, but mostly, like when I'm asking him, what do you think? Should I do this? Asking for his advice. It's mostly inside.
Okay.
I have experienced him speaking even through a stranger to answer a question. He has done that too.
Mm-hmm. You got a word of knowledge from someone that helped answer the question.
Yes. But it's less common. I would say more than 80% of the time, it's him actually speaking to me. Yes, and the other more frequent way he answers is through a dream. I would wake up and he would show me something or tell me something. For example, when I was asking him for insight on something, I woke up with him saying Psalm 61, and he would show me a picture of a book, but I knew it's, and but I know that he was showing me the Bible, so but he just kept saying Psalm 61, Psalm 61, and I would read that. That's the other most frequent way that he talks to me in a dream. And so normally the last few hours of the morning, because I know whenever he talks to me at that time, it's around 6 or 7 in the morning.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've had similar things where I'll be getting messages at night, through the night. Usually it's between 1 and 4, or if I'm up. Have you ever experienced staying up for many, many hours in the joy of the Lord, not sleeping through the night, and then just being on that high for days or whatever? Have you ever had that where you are, he's talking and he's working in you and you stay up for hours, or you go to sleep and then you wake up and you're up for hours? Have you had that?
Yes, the last time he did that was actually August, the end of August. Yes. Yes, he wanted to show me some things that I forgot, actually, things, because
Yes.
we forget. His memory's perfect. So yes, and he was reminding me, and one time he woke me up at 2:02 in the morning. 2:02, very specific. I'll talk about that later, but there's something to that time, as you're saying, and he said, "Do you remember? Do you remember this?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry." And he would even say, "It's okay. Let me show you again." So yes, patience. I love his patience with me specifically.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It appears to me you have a very open heart and open door for the Lord, and so this is why you have faith that he's real and authentic, and you come to him as a friend. The scripture says, invite me, and my Father and I, we will dwell with you. And so you have no problem believing that to be literal. And by your faith, he has responded in like visiting you. I think that's amazing.
Yes.
So is this thing about 2:02 a.m. you said to remind you, is this another adventure that he took you on, or what? Is this where he spoke to you? Do you remember? And he was bringing things to memory.
Yes, it was also another time that he was showing me things and teaching me, whether if it was teaching me a scripture or teaching me about about a person that he's having me teach scripture to, because there are people that ask me to teach them, and there are people just to give them an understanding, because a lot of people don't understand.
Yes.
And he would show me things about people and how to explain things to them so they'll understand it.
Right.
And I've noticed since 2014, when he has me explain something to someone, a Christian or non-believer, he would use something very simple that even a child would understand right away. So you don't,
Right.
so there's not too much mulling it over to where they'll get
Right.
it quickly,
Right.
And so I thought, wow, the Lord's very efficient when it comes to having someone understand him, So yeah.
But as you know, when you read his parables, they were very simple and applicable to daily life, really down to earth, so that even a kid could understand it, so there would be no mistake. And yet, with those simple ideas, he was able to get big, amazing, powerful principles across to us about his kingdom. He was always referring to the kingdom of God as like, everybody working together to pull in the fishing net. I mean, it was just daily stuff people could relate to. And I think that's one of the amazing teaching styles of the Lord. But it also says in the scripture, to the pure, he is pure. To the brave, he's a warrior. He meets us where we're at. He meets us wherever we're at, at whatever level we're at to bring his love and his wisdom and his salvation and his teaching to people. But you've just confirmed that. I think that's really cool.
Yes, yeah, and it really does make sense. You know, if you want someone to understand something of heaven, you have to tell it in a way where people understand it quickly.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
Yes.
they'll get confused, and then you have to re-explain something to bring them back. Yeah, it's a lot of back and forth if they don't understand it quickly. In the fall of 2014, I moved to Texas. So there is a lot more jobs there. So the the my friend Joe, his name is Joe too. Him and his wife, they have this foster organization, and they were moving to Texas because there was almost no work, no jobs, right, in my town. So in Texas, there was no problems of getting hired anywhere, especially in the areas where they were moving down to. So they told me, if you want to, try living, down there, give it a shot. And so they asked me, Joe, what do you think? And so I said, I'll get back to you. I will definitely think about it. And a few months later, I moved down to Texas. So that was, yeah. And then something else. Yeah, other things happened in my life, obviously. To me, it was one of the best times of my life. And the recession is starting to end at that time. Normal life is starting to come back, as we know. The 2010s.
So you've moved to Texas. You had the best time of your life there in 2014, of the fall of 2014, and you're off the streets. Did you have any more supernatural encounters with Jesus?
I did, and it's something I never thought he would do. I just wanted him to come to me again. So, and in October 2015, and also in the fall time, that's when he took me to see this part of heaven. He allowed me to see a place there.
I think that's
Oh boy.
amazing. It's okay. I don't think we're breaking religious protocols here because the scriptures support that. And I've talked about that, and I've been to heaven too several times. So go right ahead and tell your story, Joe. Don't hold anything back.
Yes. I will not. Yes, I love telling this because really I was, anyone can, if people always ask me how can they have a visit, and I tell them just ask, okay? And I get a shocked look when I tell them that, and and they really think it's that simple. I said, well, you ask once and you don't see anything happen, then ask again. So I think when you want something, I tell people, when you really want something, just keep asking them. Um, and I remember for about a few months, I was asking before I go to bed. I asked Abba, I want you to visit me, and I want you to do whatever you want, And I said, if you want to send your son instead, that's fine too. I just want you to come to me, and I would do it before I went to bed. So when I would come home from work, it would be around 5 in the afternoon, and sometimes most of the time it would be, if I worked a late shift, I would get home at around 8 or 9. So I would cook for a little bit, eat something. But when I'm on the bed, right before I fall asleep, I would ask that. I want you, Lord, to visit me, come to me. And that's all I said. I wouldn't always say it the same way every night, but I would make sure that, I was saying it with all my strength, and that's one thing I remember making sure of it. I was saying it as strongly as I could. And so I remember at around the third or fourth month of me doing this, that's when that one night I fell asleep. I woke up in this room. It was like a classroom. It kind of reminded me of when I was in grade school. There's all this carpet and there's this desk and there's this little area where the teacher would tell a story when she or he would want everyone to sit on the carpet. So, and I was sitting, with my hands back and my feet up front, because that's what I did when I was in grade school on Earth. I would just, and what really caught me off guard was I wasn't the adult me in this place. I was in my 9 or 10-year-old body when I was trying to when I looked down, when I looked at my hands, I looked at everything, and I was a little boy again. And then the environment started to become very beautiful and bright and soft, and just it had this very welcoming feel to it. Even the chairs and the desk in this classroom, everything, living or not, had this energy coming off of them. And the longer I stayed there, the more real it just got, and it felt so real to the point, it more real than being on Earth, for lack of a better explanation.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like. It was so real, more real than on Earth. And but I also knew I was asleep on my bed in Belton, Texas. But I was completely somewhere else. I mean, completely, I was 100% conscious, even more so, and so I was still unsure of what was going on. But then these two children of also around the same age in the same room, they walk up to me and they kneel down and they put their hands on me, and they start praying. And I don't hear every word that they're praying, but when they take their hands away, they my right away I feel no pain, especially no back pain, because in earth life, I've had really bad back pain ever since I was 20. And I also have a scoliosis, and I didn't feel any of it. And so I thought, what's going on? And so this is wonderful. And then right away, like, my spirit starts getting, all gets this strong move to go outside. And so I leave the classroom and I go down this little area that leads to this playground. And I see all these kids, and some of them are a little younger than me. Some of them are 4, some of them are older than me. Some of them are up to 13 years old. And and I'm looking for an adult in this area, and there's none. There's none on the playground. There's none in the classroom where I was in. It's just all children, you know. And then I start realizing where I am. I said this must be heaven. You know, and right when I knew exactly where I was, I turned to my right, and I see this light that's kind of fanned out, and it looks like a dress at first. It's really long and fanned out onto the playground, And you know, the children were, some of them were playing, you know, and some of them passed by me and said hi, you know, and but it's as if this angel wasn't, you know, as big as he was, because he was really huge. I knew without a doubt it was an angel, you know.
Okay, so you saw this, you said you saw something, a dress? What did you say you
Yes,
saw?
because I was so small compared to how big this angel was. So I was
Oh,
where
okay.
his feet was. Yeah,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
that's how big the
So you're
angel
looking
was.
at this gown, this thing, and then you
Yes.
discover he's an angel. Okay.
Exactly. You know, at first I didn't know what I was looking at. I thought maybe it's an awning, or maybe it's a canopy of some sort, you know. But then I see feet
You're
that
seeing
are
it through the
poking.
eyes of you're seeing it through the eyes of this child person.
Yes,
You see,
exactly.
yeah,
Yes,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, yes. I'm seeing it in my 10-year-old, 9-year-old self, you know, and because I'm so small, I didn't realize right away how big this angel was. So how tall I was in the playground. This angel, I was only up to this angel's like right below where his kneecap would be. So and and um and so I'm looking up. I start, you know, my eyes start, you know, looking up, and I see all this glistening, this sparkling. It looked like a bunch of stars that were just in in his clothes. You know, they were actually inside the clothes, and I can see them twinkle and glisten. And then and then our faces met, and he looked down at me, and it looked like like he winked at me, you know. And when he did, like this like joy energy came from his eyes, and it hit me, you know. And he started speaking with his eyes, you know. And he didn't say anything, but he was speaking. It was weird. Like there were no words, like how, you know, with Jesus, when Jesus asked me if I wanted his fire, there were words, but he was speaking through like energy. It was, you know, he was speaking by using joy and speaking through that.
The
That's
spirit
how I
of joy.
describe it. Yes, exactly. Yes, and then and then and then his wings would kind of move. He had these huge wings, and they had this light yellow goldish tint to it, and his face had that tint as well. And whenever he would move, even if he would move just a little bit, it would come off his face. These golden flakes would come off of his face. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You'll see it as I'm telling you, you know, it's every tiniest movement he made, it was like an event. You know,
Yeah.
does that make sense? You
Yes.
know, and then he moved his wings to where you could only see his eyes. And then he started shining, his entire body started shining. And then he exploded, like every single part of him, from his hair to his eyelashes, everything exploded into millions of pieces. And they started doing a dance. It's as if when he burst into these countless pieces, it's like they were dancing. And it reminded me of like when I would watch ballerinas on stage and ballerinos. They would do this beautiful choreographed dance. Every part of him was doing this dance. And then after they danced for a minute, they froze, and then he slammed it back together into one piece, and it was his wings and everything. It's as if I didn't see the transition of, like, you know, one part of him at a time. It was immediate. It was instant. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life, you know?
He did
Um,
this amazing display for you. he gave you an amazing divine display of glory for the children, for you.
Yes, yes.
What an
Glory is a
honor.
very good word. It is. That's a very good word for it, glory. That's the closest word. You
Yeah.
know, it was just like watching the best dance you would ever see in your life. You know, and so he did this a few more times, and then at that point, I couldn't look at anything else. I was content to watch that for, you know, forever. If I could, if I was able to just be there, I would be fine. I'll be totally okay. And then, and then I felt like his energy kind of calmed down a little bit. And then I saw his arms go to his side, and then, and then I felt something on the left side of my peripheral, like, you know, if you were to look at, you know, like, you know, towards 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock in your distance, at this part of my distance on the left side of me, I see this boy start walking towards me out of the crowd. You know, it's first my eyes see it. I see this young man from my peripheral on the left side, and I see him come closer, but from his shoulders to his head, it's pure white light. I do see a little bit of yellow on the edges, but it's coming, it's moving, and it's no other child on in the playground that has that. Not like him. So I noticed his was wider, and it was stronger, and it was bigger. And I mean, the other children did have it, you know, and I wish I look back and I wish that I kind of went to a mirror in heaven and see if I had that. So, but his was so much bigger. And so I'm thinking, oh boy. So at first I think, you know, I'm going to get a message, you know? So I'm thinking, okay, all right. So I know I'm in heaven. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, I know I'm in heaven. So am I going to be told something? Am I going to be shown something or given something to do? You know, and I'm getting excited and not really nervous, but you know, when you are apprehensive, but not in a bad way. There's no negative apprehensive, you know, and so he comes closer, and the young boy looks a little older than me, you know, and he has this very short dark hair, very, very short, and it was wearing this long sleeve shirt, and the pants are kind of like high waters, you know, like
We call them floods out here.
floods. You call them floods.
Floods.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And again, barefoot, you know, and you know, and so I thought it was an angel at first, but then I was revealed when he came 2 feet, like about 2 feet in front of me, you know, his smile, I remember, you know, I remember the power coming from his smile. And when he spoke, I knew immediately who it was. So this is what still gets me. So I didn't know exactly who he was until he spoke, until the first letter came out of his mouth. I thought it was an angel, you know, but it was Jesus. And so, and later on, after this experience, after he puts me back down on earth, I called him the young carpenter, you know, and that's what I call him to this day. Like from that visit, from that place in heaven, I call him the young carpenter. And and so he um yeah, he told me uh that he is a God of second chances. Like he said that a few times. I am the God of second chances.
Mm.
And I grabbed him, I grabbed and hugged him, and I wouldn't, I was squeezing him, because I was so excited, and I told him, Lord, I can't believe this. Like you allowed me to be here, and I said, Lord, you have to be with me in everything. And then he puts his hands in my hands, both his hands, both. So I have both my hands out. He puts both his hands in mine. He says, Joseph, Joseph, don't worry, I will be. And and
Mhm.
then and then and then like I started to feel that he was letting me go, and so there was a gradual transition from him putting me back on earth, from heaven to earth. I didn't wake up immediately, back down on earth. So I felt this transition from that world
Yes.
to this world. It was, but I can still kind of feel the remnants of it as I was waking
Mhm.
up. Like I can still
Yep.
feel remnants of his hands and the energy and his voice, and even the huge big giant angel that was in that place, that
Yeah.
his energy permeated the atmosphere, and then that's when I woke up, and it was still dark outside. And I couldn't sleep anymore. I grabbed my journal, and I started writing down everything. I said, this is
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm still having trouble believing that God allowed me to experience that. It was just so incredible, you
You
know.
know, Joe, that's very similar to some of the experiences I've had where Jesus comes differently. And I've explained this in my videos, that he will come and show you a side of himself that is so intimate and so amazing. It's an expression of his love, but when we see him in these different facets, we love him in a different way. It's like he shows us something different about himself, and then we get a different perspective, and then we love him from that perspective. So you've experienced him as a teenager or a young carpenter. I experienced him in my room as the young Messiah when he was a young man.
Oh,
So you're just really validating or paralleling a lot of similar experiences I've had in different ways. I see this pattern of this relationship that we get with the Lord, and how he chooses to show us himself in different facets and in different ways, because then it awakens a different part of our heart to see him in that venue. He's come off the cross, he's come off the religious icon statues, and he's alive. And then when he's alive and you're visited, or you go to heaven, he starts showing you all these different aspects of his who he is. But when he does that, we're also exposed to different ways to love him. It's just amazing to hear your story.
yes, that's well put. I can definitely see that. Like when he can be everything and everywhere, and
That's right.
any form. Yes, I learned that. I learned that after this experience, that he's everything and everywhere in so many ways.
Yeah.
That's why and that's what he told me to tell people, like people that feel very sad and suicidal and alone. We
Mm,
really extremely are not.
right.
Like you can, like, let's say when you're sad and you're going through this deep trauma, and it happened when you were real little, he can come into that part of you that's really little and a child, and he
That's
can,
right.
yeah, it's like what you're saying. He can come to you any age, any kind
Right.
of way. Yeah.
Right. And it says, to the pure, he's pure, to the brave, he's a warrior. So he comes to us on whatever level we're willing to receive him, or on a level that he chooses to show us about the dynamics of him. And I think that's beautiful testimony for you to be blessed with, to see him as the young carpenter. I saw him as the young Messiah when he came into my room. He looked like he was just barely 30 or 30, no older than maybe 32. He was so young and fresh looking. And we see these movies of Jesus and he looks like he's 45 in these Jesus movies. And when he showed me himself as the young man he was when he walked the earth, he was just amazing, just young and beautiful, Annie. So I'm really happy that you shared this intimate look at him in another part of the dynamics of how he chose to show himself to you as the young carpenter. I think that's amazing.
Yes, yes. And really fast, like when I went to the church that I was a singer at this time, um there was a picture in the nursery, and this was one of the biggest confirmations I have ever seen, you know, just to totally burn away my earthly doubt if I had one, you know, and it was Jesus, that same age. I couldn't stop looking at the picture in the church. I said, I've been in this church for almost a year. I've never seen this picture of Jesus. And it shows him with a little mallet. And he was like what he looked like, in a little different, a little bit different, a little older when he showed me himself as a young carpenter in heaven. But in this picture in the church, he was a little younger, but it was, yeah, I mean, I've most paintings I see and that the world sees, we know what paintings those are. It's
Yeah.
never, it's not common to see people paint him as a young, 13-year-old or 14-year-old carpenter, you know.
Right.
And,
We usually
yeah,
only depict him as in his ministry. We don't see him as he was when he was a young boy.
yes.
Is there anything you wish to uh, leave with our viewers? Do you have any words for them, for our viewers?
Yes. There, especially for people that really feel like no one loves them, because that's what Abba made my heart for. People that feel that no one loves them or cares
He
about them.
made your heart for the rejected, for those that were
Exactly.
rejected. Mm.
Exactly. Those who
Mhm.
are traumatized, rejected. Shortly after this experience, Tina, he had me put permanently on my list, because I have a list, that's like, this is also kind of supernatural. Like, I have a list that's on me in the spirit that has family names on it, not just individual people names. And I asked, and he wrote down those who are suicidal. So when I give my offerings, whether it's fasting, whether if it's praying at 2 in the morning, whatever time, or doing my angelic language, my tongues, whatever it is, whatever I'm giving Abba, it's going also majorly to people that are suicidal. And look what happened in the real world on Earth. From the 2010s, suicide went up, and that's around the time when he wrote that for me to intercede for people that are suicidal. I remember one of the first confirmations he gave me was when he just showed me the cover of this magazine, and it was Robin Williams, when he killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
So he was confirming, these are who I want you to give prayer for the rest of your life, Joe. Jesus was telling me for the rest of my life, this is one of the ones you will always give offerings for. That really, spend time with them, talk to them. It's like a parent, that really cares and loves you, or a best friend, and you know, spend time with your parent, with your best friend. God is all those things.
Yes.
So
Yeah, develop that relationship for sure.
yeah, I mean, when I cook, because I like to cook, right? Every time I cook, I invite him to, like, spend time with me as I'm cooking.
I do
So
the same thing. I put a dinner plate
you
out
do?
for him. I do. I
Really?
put like if I have ribs or something good, or if I have just I set his plate out. I put the Jewish shawl over the shawl over his chair, and I give him a whole dinner plate of food, and I invite him. That's what communion is. It's not it's communing and inviting the presence of the Lord, and he comes. He comes to those who believe by faith.
Wow, you're the first one I've met. I'm not kidding. And in my 12 years walking with the Lord, like you're the first one that does that. And
Oh yeah,
the
I do.
littlest things you ask him
Oh,
into.
all the time. I do that. I go through.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Awesome.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Joe. You are such an amazingly beautiful soul, such a beautiful saint for the Lord. And I want to thank you so much. I know that the viewers will feel so blessed by your testimony. You make the Lord feel reachable and tangible and real, which he is. And so your stories of your relationship with him and the journey he takes you on is something that the world really needs to hear. So I want to thank you for that. Do you want to leave us with a prayer?
Yes, I would love to.
Okay,
Absolutely.
take us
All
through
right.
it, Joe.
Yes. Abba Father, Almighty, King of eternity, I ask you to come into this place. Everyone that's listening, I ask you to loose countless blessings on Tina here, on everything. Make her heart bigger as time goes on, just like yours. Abba Father, keep on filling her. I loose more of your glory onto her and every single person that is hearing this or that would watch this story. And I ask you, Abba Father, come with your Holy Ghost, all strongly, again, on everyone hearing this and watching this video. In your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Hallelujah.
Amen. Oh, amen. Awesome. Beautiful. Joe, thank you. You are such a delight. I know your story is going to reach the world, and I know that what he's got for you up ahead is amazing. And what you are doing is being written down in the kingdom of heaven, in the scrolls and books of heaven of your amazing journey. And I think that's you're going to have a big, thick book when you get to heaven to see the story of your life in the Lord. So I want to thank you very much for bringing that to light to it and sharing that with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was great. I was honored.
I want to say if you have any questions, Joe, I'm going to put your information down in the description box. Would that be okay to have people contact you?
Yes, please. Yes, my email. Yeah, if
Yes,
anyone
I'll get
needs
your,
prayer or someone to talk to.
sure, I'll go ahead and do that. And more information about my ministry, Kingdomwalker Ministries, will be down there in the dialogue, excuse me, in the description box, as well as a way to contact me for anything you may have questions for or prayer requests. So thank you again, Joe, and God bless you. And I want to say thank you to our viewers too. God bless you and shalom in Christ Jesus.
You too.